What do you do when your neighbor throws a picnic on your land, not knowing you've got a 600-pound grizzly bear levying there? That's the mess I found myself in, standing by the lake in my bathrobe, a tranquilizer gun in hand, watching a suburban potluck turn into a screaming stampede. The picnic table was still smoldering, potato salad splattered like a crime scene, and someone's sandal was stuck in the mud. In the middle of it all, lumbering through the chaos with the chill of a bouncer at a dive bar, was my bear, Honey. Yeah, you heard that right. My bear. And this is how we got here. This land wasn't something I picked out of a real estate catalog. It's 78 acres of lakeside wilderness, stitched into my soul by my uncle, Amos. Around here, folks called him the crazy hermit with a shotgun and a PhD in wildlife biology, depending on who you asked. To me, he was the guy who taught me to track deer by moonlight and whisper to bears like you're talking down a drunk at a bar. When he died, he didn't leave much, just a crumpled envelope with my name, Jake, scrawled on it, the deed to this slice of heaven, and a note that read, "Keep it wild, keep them fed, keep the city folks out." So I did. Amos wasn't just quirky, he was a genius with a plan. Years back, he got the land zoned as a conservation habitat, meaning no condos, no vacation homes, and no trespassers without a stack of permits. Tucked behind a ridge by the lake was his masterpiece, a fortified bear sanctuary with steel fencing, elevated walkways, and a gate that could stop a tank. Inside lived Honey, a cinnamon-coated grizzly, blind in one eye, rescued from a sketchy roadside zoo as a cub. Under Federal Wildlife Permit 543A, NCWR 3, she was an educational specimen, legally mine to protect for life. I took care of her diet salmon, mostly smoked her vet checks, and enough paperwork to choke a bureaucrat. The state checked in quarterly, the feds yearly. I kept everything tighter than a drum. You have to with bears. It was quiet, wild, perfect. Until the HOA showed up. The lakeside estates sprouted up across the lake, a few years ago, cookie-cutter houses with names like The Pines and Willow Grove. Realtors sold it as Serene Lakeside levying, with nature trails, except those trails were my land, and they had zero access. At first, it was no big deal. Kids fished near their side, couples kayaked too close, spooking the herons. I let it slide as long as they stayed off my property, marked with signs Amos carved himself. Private property, no trespassing, wildlife habitat. And the kicker: danger, live animals. But then the letter started, signed by Susan Whitaker, HOA president, with a signature so crisp it screamed control freak. The first was polite, asking to discuss shared lakefront access. I ignored it. The second claimed my exclusive lake use. Violat some made-up state law. Bull. The lake was 100 fan tram on my land, backed by county surveys and Amos's hand-drawn maps, complete with notes like, "Beaver Dam here," and "Don't step in the sinkhole." I sent Susan a certified letter with my zoning docs, permit copies, and a sticky note. "This ain't your backyard, Susan. Bears live here." That shut her up. For a while. Then I started noticing things. A tree near my fence sawed low, sap still dripping. Orange trail markers nailed to my pines. A 20-yard stretch of brush turtle nesting ground hacked to bits. Worst of all, one morning I found a laminated sign by my dock. Future HOA trail expansion. Enjoy nature responsibly. I nearly spat my coffee. I ripped it out, drove to their clubhouse, and crashed their pancake brunch. Holding the sign and a boundary map, I said, loud enough for the syrup to tremble, "Touch my land again, and I'll feed your contractor to Honey." Susan just smiled, all teeth, and said, "I spoke to a property lawyer, Jake. Lakes are public domain." I leaned in. "Susan, I don't own the water. I own the land under it, around it, and the only way to it. This is a bear sanctuary, not your picnic spot." She waved me off like I was a pesky uncle. "We'll let the courts decide. Fix your signs. They're not neighborly." That's when I knew this was war. I got to work. Solar cameras, infrared motion triggered. Double fencing, a new gate with a weekly code. Signs every 50 yards with legal citations. I sent copies to the county, the feds, and fed Honey extra salmon she loves it smoked. I logged every trespass, every marker I yanked from a tree, in a folder labeled Susan's Folly. Using Amos's old typewriter, I sent the HOA a reminder. Trespassing here is a federal wildlife offense. Honey doesn't care who you are. Neither does the law. Things went quiet, but you know suburbia's brewing trouble when lawns get too neat and emails pile up. Susan was planning something. I just didn't know it involved tiki torches, a bounce house, and a picnic table 20 feet from Honey's fence. I found out about their spring fling picnic from a flyer on a telephone pole. Fun, food, and family at the lakeside meadow, Saturday, noon. There's only one meadow here, and it's mine. I drove to the property line and saw it pink surveyor stakes, twine stretched like a battle line, flags dotted across my land like a cursed HOA chessboard. This wasn't just trespassing, it was invasion. I called the sheriff, the zoning office, the wildlife department. The wildlife guy got it. If that bear gets spooked, it's a nightmare for them, not you. I hung a 10-foot banner. Federally permitted bear habitat. Turn back or lose a limb. But Saturday came. By 10 a.m., I heard leaf blowers. By 11, tent poles clinked, chairs unfolded, and a Bluetooth speaker blared some god-awful pop remix. From my porch, coffee in hand, I watched Susan's husband, Greg, sweat through his polo, arguing over bounce house stakes. Another HOA lackey, Linda, set up sunflower tablecloths. A smoker grill crossed my line. Susan strutted with a clipboard, barking orders like she owned the place. They'd set up fully on my land, right by Honey's enclosure, probably thinking it was just a fancy fence. I didn't yell. Didn't call the cops. I checked my cameras, loaded the tranquilizer gun, and fed Honey early so she'd be too full to sniff out hot dogs. I waited. They lasted 90 minutes. The picnic was peak suburbia, adults sipping rose, kids shrieking in the bounce house, cornhole boards creaking. Susan stood on a platform, gushing about our untouched lakeside gem, saying nature, so much I wanted to gag. They trampled wildflowers, crushed turtle nests, hung fairy lights in century-old oaks. Then it happened. A kid, Tommy, tossed a frisbee too far. It sailed past Honey's gate. He chased it. I grabbed the gun. The scream sharp, primal hit like a siren. Tommy ran back, yelling, "Bear!" Chaos erupted. Chairs flew, a wine bottle shattered, moms dove behind the bounce house. Susan didn't run. She marched to the gate, waving her clipboard, shouting, "Who's responsible?" like she'd found an unlicensed petting zoo. I stepped out, robe flapping, gun ready. Her face went from fury to fear when she saw me. "You brought that monster here!" she hissed. I ignored her, scanning the crowd, spotting Honey sniffing the air, calm as ever. "Nobody move," I said. "She's curious, not aggressive. I'm handling it." Susan screeched about liability. Someone called 911. I radioed the wildlife officer. "Honey's out, low alert. Administering sedation." One clean dart to her flank, and Honey plopped down like a tired dog. 10 minutes later, she was out cold. 20 minutes later, the officer arrived, nodding as I explained. Nobody hurt, just a dozen rattled suburbanites. Susan, mascara streaking, whispered, "You planned this." I took off my sunglasses. "Susan, you threw a party on a bear preserve. What did you expect?" She didn't waste time. 3 days later, a manila envelope arrived, sealed with an HOA emblem like it was royal decree. Inside, a CIVYL nuisance complaint called Honey a predator kept for intimidation, citing Tommy's frisbee, blurry photos of me with the gun, and a deflated bounce house Greg forgot to stake. It was war round 2. I sent the county a counter packet, my permits, easement docs, camera footage of their trespass, and proof they'd misused $18,000 in HOA funds for the picnic down to a $400 face painting booth labeled Honey Makeover. Susan fought back with flyers. Is a bear in your backyard? They called me a gun-toting lunatic with an illegal zoo. Neighbors bought it, posting about multiple bears and rabies risks. Then Susan went too far, installing a shrieking ultrasonic siren that scared off herons and deer. I'd had enough. I called Dr. Lena Park, a state biologist, and Riley Voss, a journalist with a YouTube channel bigger than Susan's ego. I gave them the Turlake, fences, permits. Honey waddled out, plopped in the sun, and stole the show. Riley's article, The Bear vs. Suburbia, went viral. Memes of Honey rolled in. A GoFundMe for her sanctuary hit $120,000. The sheriff's clerk asked if my kid could get a Honey plushie. Susan, desperate, tried eminent domain, claiming my land was underutilized. Her petition had 37 signatures, 3 from dead people, 5 from ex-residents, and a dozen fakes. I handed it to the state attorney. They launched an investigation. Susan's board collapsed. The state upgraded my land to critical habitat, untouchable forever. The hearing was the final blow. I walked into the county building, flannel crisp, binder heavy with EVY Denke. Susan, in a blazer sharp enough to cut glass, led her HOA crew. Judge Clara Holt, a no-nonsense legend, presided. Susan's PowerPoint titled, When Nature Turns Menace, showed bear attack stock photos and fake, Grizzly pheromone claims. The room gagged. I stood calm and played drone footage, Susan's picnic trampling my land, her crew staking protected soil, Greg wrecking a fox den. I showed my permits, biologist letters, and the $18,000 spreadsheet. Susan's face went ghost white. Judge Holt didn't blink. Did you authorize these funds, Ms. Whitaker? Susan stammered. Yes. The gavel slammed. Petition denied. HOA ordered to retract their lies, stay 100 yards away, and repay every cent. Susan was done. Outside, Riley's camera caught me. What's next for you and Honey? I grinned. She's napping. Maybe I'll build her a hammock. That clip hit 1 million views. The HOA imploded. Susan was voted out, Greg quit, Linda vanished. The new president, a wetlands guy named Paul, asked me to lead a nature walk for kids. I said yes if they renamed their newsletter Saw the Bear Facts Saw. They did. The first issue had Honey snoozing on the cover, captioned, Our Real Neighbor. I carved a cedar sign for the dock. Home of Honey, True President. Below, in small letters. She won unanimously. And me? I just keep doing what Amos taught me, keep it wild, keep her fed, and keep the Susans out.